All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at the dramatic, highly contested 2026 race for the governor's mansion down in South Carolina.
So here's the deal. Republican incumbent Henry McMaster is term limited out. He can't run for a third consecutive term. That means the stage is set for a massive political showdown on November 3rd, 2026. It's a completely open seat, which, creates a huge vacuum of power, and politicians from all over the state have been scrambling to fill it.
To see how we got our final two nominees, we'll follow this roadmap. First, setting the 2026 stage. Then, the Democratic contender, followed by a crowded Republican field. After that, we'll hit the primary polls and results, and finally, wrap up with the Republican runoff.
Section 1. Setting the 2026 stage. The battle for the Palmetto State.
Section 2. The Democratic contender, Jermaine Johnson, secures the nomination.
On the Democratic side, Jermaine Johnson actually claimed a really definitive primary victory on June 9th over Billy Webster, who you might remember as a former chief of staff to Governor Richard Riley. Pulling in nearly 60% of the vote to Webster's 40.3%, Johnson comfortably avoided a runoff entirely. That's huge, because it allowed him to immediately pivot his whole focus to November.
But, and this is a big but, Johnson is facing a massive historical uphill battle. 1998, that's the year. That is literally the last time a Democrat won a gubernatorial election in South Carolina. Think about that. To take the governor's mansion, he's going to have to shatter a nearly 3-decade-long losing streak.
Section 3. A crowded Republican field, the fight to replace McMaster.
Now, over on the GOP side, the primary attracted a packed bracket of absolute political heavyweights. I mean, we're talking sitting executives like Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette and Attorney General Alan Wilson. Add to that U.S. Representatives Ralph Norman and Nancy Mace, plus prominent businessman Rom Reddy. With no incumbent to worry about, this field was fiercely competitive literally from day one.
What quickly emerged was this fascinating sort of endorsement economy. National figures were placing high-stakes bets on local contenders. Pamela Yvette locked in incumbent Governor Henry McMaster and, at least initially, Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Ralph Norman secured conservative titans like Nikki Haley and Mark Meadows. And Alan Wilson, he went a different route, building a coalition of out-of-state attorneys general. So, this wasn't just a local race anymore. National factions were really staking their claims on the Palmetto State.
As tension really mounted across 3 televised debates in April and May, we saw a fascinating strategic gamble. Frontrunner Pamela Yvette actually opted out of the first and third events. Crazy, right? She only participated in the middle debate, basically leaving her rivals to trade blows on stage without her for most of the season.
Section 4. Primary polls and results. The June 9th first round.
Leading right up to Election Day, the polling averages showed a razor-thin margin. Yvette held this microscopic 1.5% advantage over Wilson. And right behind them, Reddy, Norman, and Mace were all clustered in the mid-teens. It was essentially a statistical dead heat. Talk about a nail-biter.
Well, when the June 9th votes were finally tallied, reality completely mirrored the polls. Yvette and Wilson grabbed the top 2 spots with about 29% and 26% respectively. But here's the kicker. South Carolina law requires a candidate to cross a flat 50% threshold to secure the nomination outright. Since nobody hit that mark, it instantly triggered a high-stakes runoff between our top 2 finishers.
Section 5. The Republican runoff, the final showdown. So it all came down to 2 established state executives going head-to-head. On one side, Pamela Yvette, the state's lieutenant governor since 2019. On the other, Alan Wilson, the attorney general since 2011. Both are deeply entrenched in state politics, both have significant backing, and now they were squaring off for the nomination.
But then came a massive political plot twist. Right ahead of the runoff, Donald Trump, who, remember, had exclusively endorsed Yvette earlier, officially announced his support for both Wilson and Yvette. At the very same time, eliminated rivals Nancy Mace, Ralph Norman, and Josh Kimbrell threw all their weight behind Alan Wilson. It created this huge overnight shift in momentum.
And wow, did that momentum shift lead to a staggering result, 68.6%. After a razor-thin primary just weeks prior, Alan Wilson decisively crushed the runoff with nearly 69% of the vote. He completely slammed the door on Yvette's campaign and secured the GOP nomination.
So after all the primary drama, the strategic endorsements, and a total blowout runoff, we are left with one massive question for November. Will Republican Alan Wilson maintain his party's iron grip on the executive branch? Or is the political ground shifting just enough for Democrat Jermaine Johnson to shatter a 30-year losing streak? The outcome here might just tell us where the entire country is heading. Keep your eyes on the Palmetto State, folks.